were those assets seized during the revolution or after that? And
yeah, no, the assets were not seized, and there hasn't been any accountability yet for that theft of those resources. And as far as the question on what is to be done, well, I mean, as I mentioned before, okay, we have, I think, the need to continue to build a revolutionary party. A workers' revolutionary party is definitely there, and I think it's people are aware of that. And I don't know if it's easier to do so at a time like this or harder to do so at a time like this. There needs to be a way to create circumstances to support the increasing labor movement and unionization movement. And I mean circumstances within Egypt, like whether they be legal circumstances. The new interim government is threatening to, again, criminalize work stoppages. They're threatening to bring back emergency law. They're threatening to bring back national security police. And I think, you know, there's the potential that a lot of the oppressive characteristics of the Mubarak regime will rear its head again, and that lead to another revolutionary surge against a government that is sort of coming in. So people have to be prepared and they have to sort of be ready. And you know, global support, I think, is very important. I think in terms particularly of for solidarity with the workers' movement, and in sort of dealing with the actions of imperialist powers who continue to interfere. There's a little bit of a debate now as to where the U.S. is in this situation and whether or not they continue to have the same influence.
My question is related to the role of U.S. imperialism right from this 2011 uprising. So, what was the strategy? Initially, they tried to defend Chief Mubarak, but after that, they also got kind of. So, could you throw some more light on that problem,
Yeah.
the role and the strategy of U.S. imperialism right since that uprising and even now, what is going on? What kind of alignment is there with the U.S. imperialism and how much support so what is the class of people who support those neoliberal policies and what is the size of that constituency?
Well, I think Obama came to Cairo in 2008. He gave this famous Cairo speech, and a lot of his rhetoric was similar to rhetoric you hear in other places that include. I mean, I don't really remember his speech that well, but it includes a lot of discussion about progressive ideals, democracy, moving forward, and I think that at that time, or even during the Bush era, and I think it was on the mind of the American imperialists that there could potentially be an uprising as Mubarak in Egypt. Society was really that repressive in many ways. And I think that they sort of facilitated a way for them to try to have influence in whatever opposition forces might arise against Mubarak if there was an uprising. And that's when they began to really bring in their NGOs, like Freedom House and the National Endowment for Democracy, and all of those American-funded NGOs that administration by the name of Michael Posner. He's the head of the Human Rights Department. And he was the founder of American human rights NGO called Human Rights First. I was actually in the room with him. He took credit for the entire Arab Spring. It's like, he's like, I'm very proud of myself for the emergence of the Arab Spring. Because it's this idea that it was the American NGOs who came into Egypt and taught these values of democracy. And in a way, that's really what they were trying to do. They were creating relationships with elites in themselves, but elites who had opposition to Mubarak. And so they were doing that on one level. On another level, when the uprising happened, the United States was consistent in making statements where they refused to refer to Mubarak as a dictator. They kept saying that Mubarak was a friend of the United States and a friend of Israel. And that's basically sort of the same thing. And it was only when it became evident that the people would succeed that they began to sort of bring up then that rhetoric and that democracy and values. And they put forth this rhetoric, this narrative, that the Egyptian revolution was all for them to get a chance to elect a president. As if the aspirations were so narrow as to just be part of the ballot box. When SCAF came to power, the same relationship continued. You know, it's the military, they had this long relationship with them, and the United States continued to send them money and send them arms and send them tear gas, even as SCAF murdered people with those arms and that tear gas. And then when the Brotherhood came to power, the United States, in their very sort of ignorant analysis of the Arab world as being this non-fluid place, they sort of went full force in sort of trying to create the same alliance with the Brotherhood. And the Brotherhood joined that. The Brotherhood acted as pro-American as the Mubarak regime did, aligned with the American support for the Syrian rebels, cooperating with Israel in something that never happened during the Mubarak era. They put electronic surveillance at the Egyptian Gaza border to monitor any forms of resistance going into Gaza from the Egypt side. And, you know, the United States assumed that this was the direction now that Egypt would go in. It was the same direction Tunis was going in as well, with also the election of the Islamic Party. And it's the direction that Syria is going in. And it fits very nicely into this new Middle East that they refer to, that Rice has referred to, and Obama has referred to. And that new Middle East is facilitating, or has been facilitating, this anti-Iran, anti-Shia, pro-Saudi kind of dichotomy in the region. And Brotherhood's election fit nicely into that. And so when the people organized for June 30th, the U.S. ambassador, Ann Patterson, to Egypt, basically told them, to stop. Basically said, you're not going to achieve anything. This is anti-democratic, and Morsi is not Mubarak. Omar Suleiman had said, Egypt is not Tunis, and then Mubarak was deposed, and then the Americans said Morsi is not Mubarak, and then Morsi was deposed. So, people really don't seem to have a grasp on which way the direction is going. Actually, no one does. And right now, there's a scholar who has been studying the relationship between the U.S. and the Egyptian military for quite some time. And she commented recently that the $1.3 billion that the military gets from the U.S. every year has decreased in value, really. And what we see now is a change during Mubarak and during the rule of SCAF, the ruling elite and liberal middle class forces would say, we must continue to get aid from the United States. saying, we don't want the U.S.'s money. We'll get money from Russia. And the army is being said, we'll get money from Russia. So it's clearly sort of a situation now where they're saying, maybe we don't need to have to be so influenced by the United States. There are other global players that we can go to, but essentially it would be a similar kind of relationship.